Okay, Dr. Dan here again, and I am going to share my Photoshop document for another quick tip. So, in this file, um, I've taken this line art pretty simple, but it is not brought in how I like it to be. Um, it was vector and it was brought in, and they did the design um, and then brought it into Photoshop to save as a Photoshop file for me to separate. But when they opened it up in Photoshop, they used anti-aliasing, and that gave it that little fuzzy blended edge here on the line work, so it's not sharp and clean. Um, so what happens with that is when you go to break out your colors, like this would be my grays, and then this would be my black because I've made an adjustment and knocked out all the gray, used this as a tool to knock out of the duplicate black screen. And then I heavied up the black screen, or yeah, to make my gray. But in doing so, what this does is on your gray separation, it left these lines here. And so here's what I want to say about that. The depending on the color that you use, like this is going on a black shirt. Um, it says charcoal, but it's initially going on black, but it may go on multiple colors, so I'm including a black separation. Um, but when we change this to any kind of a dark gray or a medium gray, you kind of barely see these colors on here. And a little bit darker. So once printed on the shirt, they suck up the shirt color a little bit, right? So you don't necessarily see these lines all that much, unless it was white ink, for example. Then you're going to see it really pop out. And then when you print your black screen down over top of it, you may get this little halo effect, and you don't want that, right? And so your artists that are paying attention more will try to come back in and clean that up. But there are some areas where it gets questionable. It's butt up against your gray area. And this is why I wanted to make this little tutorial, just to show you this tiny little tip. So what I want to do is I want to, on this gray, I don't want to have this dark line going around here that's going to end up showing up as a bright outline, right? I want it to be the same tone as this area in here when it's butt up against my black trim line. So what I'll do is I'll make a selection of the channel, and that selects every little pixel in there. And then I can paint on it, okay? And it's confined or locked into that shape where the pixels are. But here's the difference is I want to hold down my Alt key or Option key on a Mac and click in the center area where the gray tone is and reference that color. Notice my little color swatch area changes to the color. And then I want to hide my selection. That's Control or Command H. Take the brush tool, which is on pencil right now, and it's on pencil, so that it's controlled, and I don't have, color going into like this area, fading out. So it's on pencil, and I now, because I've referenced this color, I can paint this edge here, and so everything will be consistent, and you won't see this stark contrast of this line butt up against it. So I do that, like in this area here, I just want to reference the white, and I'll come in and paint that. In most cases, I would deselect because there's some residual, but deselect it and just start painting, knocking out the white where I don't want that outline, that gap. That's a good example of why you don't want to use anti-aliasing. You want to turn that off when you paste files, vector files into Photoshop. So I got to clean this up. And then again, select on my channels, reference the color in the middle, and then paint along the edge here. So it doesn't matter if I go out here because I'm selecting the pixels and it's locked into the pixels. Bada boom, bada bing. And click, hold down the shift key, drag down here, little area there. These are all the things that a good separator will do for you. There are a lot of times where the separator will just leave all that in there. And that, you know, it can be seen. It could also not be seen depending on the ink, the color that's being that this separation is being used in, and the garment color. But in general, you want to not have this stuff. A perfect separation, a good separation is not going to have these little lines in here. But many people do leave them in there. And like I said, it depends on the art. Sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't. Again, lock into the pixels. Hold down the shift, click. Clean that up a little bit. Same here. I'm just trying to avoid halos in my print. You can tell when it's somebody's done this with the right colors and they've just left that halo crap in there, and you know, they've not cleaned up the artwork. And a good separator will look at the separation and they appreciate what you've done, that good cleanup. You know, look at it and say, oh yeah, that's a good separation right there. Nice and clean. Okay, just wanted to show you. And that's how I go about that. Then I increase that up, paint that out, click, click, hold down a shift key, click in this area, come over out the other end, click. That helps speed things up when you're trying to clean this up a little bit. Anyway, whoop, made a little dent in there, right there, there. All right, that's it. Have a good day.